we're looking here at zonal defense analysis. This essentially is a far more advanced version of that counterproductive statistic of counting how many times you get the ball into the scoring zone and how many times you score from it. This looks at every attack and categorises it into various different types of attack, which you'll see over here, and the totals and ratios of those type of attacks, which you'll see over here. As you'll see when we look on, this probably more than anything alludes to, and I would say maybe even more than alludes to, probably blatantly points to how balanced or imbalanced your side is. And as you see the example we look at in a minute, and the more you get used to this, it actually will become your statistical best friend in terms of sizing up if your side is balanced and if you can expect the score lines you're getting to continue. So we look over here and we'll see every attack has different possibilities. So you can have a man-on-man attack here as the second one. That's a good starting point. And that basically means that you're attacking man-on-man. You don't have any spare players in the attack and they don't have any spare players in the defence. An overlap obviously means that the attacking side has one spare player or more over in the attack. Obviously it doesn't happen very frequently, but it is highly significant because it represents a huge goal chance. So we go man-on-man again, we go down one. +1 means it's a man-on-man +1 defence. That means that you're facing a defence with one extra spare player. A blanket defence means they have 2 spare players or more. Again, not everybody will want to use it, but I think there's as you'll see again, there's massive significance in separating attacks that come straight off long kick-outs, regardless of which one of these they fit into, to count it as something separate. And then turnover free rarely happens. That's literally because you do want to account for every score. If the opposition fouled the ball or foul you immediately upon turning over possession in a scoring free position, you would have a turnover free. So we'll have a quick look at how it works and one or two of the parameters before we look at a completed chart. So I've marked these times out already. Let's have a look. So here we are in the first one. This is the Vincent's Ballymun Senior Football Semi-Final in Dublin from 2016. So you'll see. Now, first of all, what constitutes an attack? The marker I use is an imaginary arced line between the 45 and the 65. And from a dead central position, it's 1/4 away from the 65 and 3/4 away from the 45. And on the halfway line, on the sideline I should say, it's halfway between the two. So to that end, it's more or less 60 yards from this position, a little bit more from over here, but you'll imagine that imaginary arced line. Now when you're looking at that in a hypothetical situation, it probably seems complicated, but as you get used to this, it actually becomes second nature. And we'll see here, at this point I can tell from experience, Diarmuid Connolly has just crossed that imaginary line. You could use the 45 or the 65, but I don't think that they represent the truest and most significant value, so I find that arced line to be the most significant. Now, the second thing to point out here is if you're looking at RTE or TG Caher videos, it's quite difficult to use this piece of analysis. You'll generally need a wide lens to analyse this. And again, if you're recording games, a simple low-tech methodology, you could do this. You could simply tape a GoPro camera to the top of your normal camera, and that will give you 2 recordings, your normal recording and your wider angle. The video you'll see here is sort of a halfway house between the two. So Connolly has now entered the attacking zone, but we don't yet know actually from this video, because they're close to the side of the camera, what way it's going to go. So as we play it, now we'll see it's man on man, man on man, man on man. There was one spare defender here, which was John Small. As we roll on the video, yeah, we'll see that was definitely the case. There's no extra spare men in here. So this T button is the same as start timer, but it will do 2 things. I'm going to delete this as it's already in. So what we would do in that situation is we'd say, right, it's a man-on-man +1 attack, and now that's going to log that we're going to record something, and it logs with a video. And we'll see here it's quite an interesting one, because Philly McMahon drops the ball here. The attack isn't over until it's gone out for a dead ball for the other side, or they have possession. So you'll simply see here no score, and you would move the video on. So there's one other important piece of information in terms of what constitutes a different attack. Now you'll see here again, talk about positive penetrative plays. That pass has taken out 7 Vincent's players who were behind the ball. Now, we don't count it as an attack until somebody has gained possession here. So if that ball was played from the half-back line in here, but a player dropped the ball, it's not considered an attack unless you get the attacking team get the ball into their hands. Also, in terms of which one of these do we count, we don't count it as an attack until a player has the ball facing the goal. And from that point, we take the best scenario here. Obviously, as you go down, each one of these is more likely to get a score than the next. We don't count it until somebody has the ball facing the goal. That means at least within 90 degrees of the goal. And we count the best scenario they have within 3 seconds of receiving the ball. So you'll see here, we are going to log an attack because he's got the ball, but we're not logging what it is until somebody's facing the goals. Now we have it, and we're going to roll it on for a second, and we see there's the full picture, and we can see now it's man on man here, it's man on man here. This man here is approaching James McCarthy. This player is behind the ball, so we actually have 4 red jerseys on 3 white jerseys. So Ballymun have a man on man attack here. So again, we'll delete that because it was already marked. We'll go on here and we'll say, right, we be logging, that's a man on man. And again, from the point of view, sorry, it's an overlap, sorry. So we start our timer. Again, if we go back to our video, it's going to start from whatever amount of seconds you've logged in the options. We've logged 12 seconds here. It's a man on man, sorry, it's an overlap. So we'll see what happens. He's put it wide, so it's no score. Obviously, if he had scored a point, you'd click point, a goal, you'd click goal. And that basically shows how it works. Now, there's a final table here I want to show you, which will give you just the significance of this. I don't want to give away who the teams involved were, so I've just made up a couple of imaginary names. But if you want to get your head around this, now don't ignore this table here because this is a game I did manually a few years ago, so I just filled in those totals there. But have a look at the totals table, and this team here were the favourites to win the championship, and this team here were also Rans. Now you'll see here 34 attacks scored to 11, 28 attacks scored 9 points. Now if you want to test yourself, pause the video, have a look at that and see if you can work out why I knew this team hadn't got a donkey's chance of winning the championship. Right, whether you've paused and had a look or not, let's move on, and I'm going to show you the significance of this. So we see here 211 to 0-9, favourites here in the championship, also Rans here, and the general consensus probably was, well, we did what we had to do to beat that team. 2 or 3 things rang alarm bells with me when I looked at this. First of all, here's our overlap and our man on man. They only had 3 attacks that were man on man or overlapped in the entire game. Look at the opposition, they had 12. Now, if that's happening against a weak team, imagine what's going to happen against a strong team. Their capacity to defend man on man wasn't fantastic. They conceded 6 points from 12 man on man attacks. Now, they looked good because when they got their overlap, they got a goal. When they got their 2 man on man attacks, they got points. Great, looked good. But you could assume that if you had these same figures against a team of equal or even close to equal raw ability, you'd probably be hammered. The second thing is, look at this. Blanket defence. 6 attacks into a blanket defence, they didn't score once. 12 attacks into a man-on-man plus 1, they only scored twice. So in 18 attacks into a blanket or a semi-blanket defence, they scored 2 points. And that was against a weak team. Again, you look down here, they defended reasonably well here, but not outrageously against a weak side. Now, the key figure here is, look at how many of their scores came from kickouts. 1-7 of their 2-11 came straight off winning kickouts. Now they had 2 joint midfielders, and if you looked at their zone by zone kickout analysis of the day, they won 72% of long kickouts to the midfield. But I was looking at that and saying, well, even if you go 50-50 against another team, you're going to be reducing that 1-7 by 28%. So let's say 30% for easy figures. You could assume that that 10 points would be down to 7. You'd assume this 1 point would be up to 2. And again, that's against a weak team. If I saw those figures with any side, especially this one here, the top 2, 12 man-on-man attacks, conceded versus 2 and 1 overlap gained, that rings alarm bells. And if you're looking for an explanation as to why Dublin in the noughties used to beat teams in Leinster and then fail when they got out of Leinster, this is why, because they frequently had significantly less man-on-man attacks than they conceded. Against teams of significantly lower raw ability, they could get away with that. But against the Kerrys, the Tyrones, the Armaghs, even the Mayos, who I would regard to have been significantly lesser able individually, they came a cropper. So as you get used to taking this, you'll see if these balances are out, you can expect trouble against better teams. And more to the point, it'll point out exactly what you have to work on. And again, with these two, if you're seriously imbalanced with that, you'd have to recognise you've probably got a systematic structural problem.